Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, more restrictions to tackle Bluetongue disease in Scotland. But let's start with a teenager from County Down who's hoping an app he's developed will help revolutionise how farms are managed. FarmFlow is the second business Ben O'Connor has launched. He's 16 and is celebrating getting his GCSE results last week. Well, Louise Cullen caught up with him as he met one of the farmers piloting the app for him.
So this calf here took meningitis the other day and the vet came out and has left us with a bottle of Ready Mark.
Jude McClements is home for the summer, working on the family farm on the shores of the Irish Sea. He hopes to return here when he's completed his degree and worked for a few years as a teacher. But right now he's got a sick calf to medicate, and that means admin.
And then 150 mil, and that was purchased 2 days ago.
Another task to add to the usual workload on a farm.
Are you getting on all right with it then?
Yes, it works really well. It's a lot quicker because it means
that workload inspired 16-year-old Ben O'Connor to develop an app to make running things easier.
I set up FarmFlow, just started in May, and it's a farm management app that aims to try change the traditional way that farms have been managed as they become more like businesses. We're trying to acknowledge that there's people working on the farms as well, so we're trying to make features that support people on farms and help farms run more efficiently. So as seen today, there's our fast tracking features, so you can track what's going on, and you can also do your red tractor and compliance as well.
So why did you do this?
Yeah, so I wanted to set up FarmFlow because we recently moved into dairying about 2 years ago, and it was a big change from beef, starting to see how much more intensive it is and how it needs to be run more efficiently. Like, I've been talking to many farmers, the average farmer works 65 hours a week, and we're trying to give them back more time with their family. So it's just sort of seeing problems on our own farm, and the entrepreneurial spirit in me always wanted to try solve them as best as I could.
This isn't Ben's first entrepreneurial venture. He developed a mail-order gift business when he was just 13. He sold that last year, and now he's excited to see what the future brings the farming profession that he wants to be part of.
Agriculture is such a traditional industry, it needs change, and as more young farmers come into it, the industry will start to change. Whether it be more robotics and automation or more apps coming in, I think it'll definitely be different and more efficient, hopefully.
It's handy, that feature that allows you to track your hours, sets the boundary and automatically clocks you.
He and Jude became friends when Jude, who's at Ulster University in Coleraine, reached out to Ben as a fellow young farmer involved in social media.
It's quite a lonely place, so I thought I'd reach out and see how he was getting on, and Ben said, would you like to be a pilot farm? And I said absolutely. Our red tractor inspection was coming up, so it was good to trial it, to see what was good about the app, to give some feedback and suggestions. But Ben had a lot of those very well covered, especially coming from a farm. Ben knew a lot of the features farmers want. You can see how farming is advancing with the likes of robotics, with these new apps, and it's exciting to see how these changes will help farmers to become more efficient, because obviously we're working on quite tight profit margins, so every bit of efficiency, every bit of time saving is important to the farmer.
Farmer Jude McClements ending that report. Wheat, barley and oilseed rape have been the backbone of the UK's arable farms for years, but after flooding and drought and disastrous harvests, will farmers now look for new or older varieties which might cope better, as well as trying some completely new crops? Well, the changing climate is one challenge, then there are pests, diseases, consumer likes and dislikes, all to take into consideration when deciding what to grow. All this week we'll be looking at the options for farmers. Dr. Lydia Smith is head of the Innovation Farm at NIAB, the National Institute of Agricultural Botany. She told me scientists can help by tweaking current crop varieties to cope better.
The breeders can get in there and really address whether a crop can be drilled early. And those ones that don't like early, we can make them more able to withstand cold conditions. So that's been the case with soybean, and it's been the case with maize. So you've seen maize marching up the countryside. And then we can look at some real new ones. So I would never have believed you if you'd said to me 10 years ago, we're going to be growing chickpea and lentils in England, but we are. And they're very happy in these hotter, sunnier, dry conditions. So we don't need to just look at breeding. We can actually look at completely new species and then look at how we can tweak those a little bit to make them suitable for our environment. And I think a chickpea that's grown in England is going to be smaller, foreseeably. So there's a bit of education of the public in there as well. Look at the chickpea that you get from England. It's great. It tastes as good. It's just smaller. So don't reject it for that. And I think let's go back and look at some of the old rediscovered crops. Let's take sainfoin, for example, which is a lovely forage legume. If you look at a picture of a farm where I often do some work in Oxfordshire, there is one field that is standout green, even now when we still had no rain, and that's the sainfoin field. So if you were a livestock producer and you were clever or lucky enough to have sainfoin in your armoury, you would still have forage now, unlike those farmers that have been relying on crops that are purely grass-based.
What about the banker crops, if you like? Wheat, barley, oilseed rape. Are we looking at new varieties of those? Or are we going to be really looking at phasing them out?
Oh, I don't think we're going to phase them out. I mean, I think work that's been done at NIAB and elsewhere to really look at the originating genetics of these is giving us crops that are very resilient and more drought resistant, deeper roots, better able to deal with these difficult conditions. So I think we're going to be looking at new varieties coming through from all sorts of clever breeding methods. And let's not reject gene editing as one route to that. But I think we want a broader rotation. I think wheat rape as a rotation was a little bit bonkers. And let's look at things like white millet. This is another exciting new species that's coming through, incredibly drought resilient due to its deep roots, and probably would be initially rejected by a lot of public because what do we want to eat, millet instead of wheat? It's not so tasty. But I think, there's lots of ways that we can deal with that, and we can cook it differently and prepare it differently so that it's just as delicious as food that are made with the old traditionals. But yes, we do need the infrastructure and we need that marketplace.
Because there's no point growing something really different, really impressive, if nobody wants to buy it.
Absolutely. Yeah. The farmers are wasting their time. And I suppose what happens is that a farm might get very good at it and then all of that will go abroad. And certainly that has happened with lovely crops like fava bean, culinary bean, that we don't want to eat it in this country for reasons I simply don't understand. And a lot of that is exported. So, we almost have some of those tools for better food security already in the country, but we're not making use of them.
Dr. Lydia Smith. The livestock disease Bluetongue continues its spread, now affecting more farms in Scotland. There are more than 500 cases in the UK, mainly in the southwest of England. And bear in mind, a case here counts a whole farm affected rather than every individual animal. This is a virus spread by midges, which affects sheep and cattle, causing sores and birth defects, and it can be fatal. It doesn't affect humans or food safety. Well, in Scotland, a series of restrictions are being introduced, with movement of animals limited around the farms affected, and any animals being taken into England or Wales for shows and so on having to return the same day. From next month, all animals moving into Scotland will have to be vaccinated. This is important because of the timing. We're fast approaching ram sale season, when thousands of tups will change hands across the UK. The biggest sale in Scotland, in Kelso, is less than 3 weeks away. Jesus Gaeko is Scotland's Deputy Chief Vet.
We had measures in place to slow down and delay and prevent as far as possible the incursion into the south of Scotland. But being a disease that is transmitted by midges and midges being free to move, there was always a very high risk that eventually it would make its way into Scotland.
You've introduced a range of restrictions. What's the basic idea behind them all?
So the long-term strategy for containing and dealing with the effects of Bluetongue is vaccination. It's the only measure that is effective once that the virus is circulating in the midge population, because at that point, any measure based on movement controls or culling is no longer effective. So the purpose of our strategy, as agreed with our stakeholders in Scotland, is to slow down the progression of disease, to try to keep it levels as low as possible and as contained geographically as possible, to give the industry time to vaccinate and to be prepared when the disease potentially spreads further.
So this is why we've seen these movement restrictions around the cases, but also why you're saying if you're taking an animal into the Bluetongue zone, which is England and Wales, you have to bring it back the same day.
Generally speaking, animals that come from the restricted zone into Scotland need to be subject to some control measures, including testing and vaccination. But we're making exemptions for animals that originate from the Scottish free area that go to the restricted zone in England as long as they return on the same day.
And this is going to have an impact because of the time of year, because we see a lot of sheep in particular, because of the ram sales, travelling around the country.
This is particularly bad time for the southwest of Scotland, given the expected number of animal moves that would take place at this time of the year.
Is there any extra advice because you've got these sales going on? I mean, were you tempted to say actually best not to have them at all?
In terms of sales and movements, talk to your auctioneer. They have up-to-date information and they'll be able to make a decision on which type of sales can go ahead and under what conditions.
So some might not go ahead then?
It will be a commercial decision between farmers and auctioneers. We have done as much as we can with them to facilitate the completion of the sales that were planned in the short term. But ultimately, it will be for markets and their customers to comply with the license conditions and to decide whether they are first able to comply with them, and second, whether it's still in their commercial interest to continue.
Jesus Gallego, Scotland's Deputy Chief Vet there. And that's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Sally Challoner. And Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.